Welcome to another episode of the CIRS Group podcast. I am Barbara.
And I'm JC.
And today we are talking about a not so fun topic, but I think I'm hoping it will be inspiring by the time we're done with it, is the topic of co-infections. What to do and what to expect if your CIRS healing journey is not quite as linear or straightforward or quick as you were hoping it would be. And there could be a lot of reasons for this. So we're going to dive into all of that today. But of course, before we do, we are not medical professionals. We're certainly not your medical professionals. You should consult with yours if you want to make any changes or ask advice about your own personal health journey. We just hope that this episode gets you to ask some questions and helps you reflect a little bit if you feel like you have stalled in your CIRS healing journey. So let's dig into that. Now, JC, I know you have experienced a few setbacks, and I know I've certainly stalled in my healing journey. I don't know if you want to talk first about kind of how your journey has looked as far as the setback side and the co-infection side.
Yeah, for me, part of my setbacks has been re-exposing myself through travel. And I think
Same.
as as a SIRS patient, it's kind of you have to figure out what is the balance for you between, keeping yourself in a safe, clean environment where you can heal and making sure that you're doing those things that make your soul happy. Like there are going to be times when you have a once in a lifetime opportunity to go somewhere, see someone that you love. And like for me, I just have the knowledge that taking that trip may set me back, but I can do that in full consciousness because I'm aware that that is going to be the possible consequence of my actions. But a larger piece of my SIRS journey was finding out that I had spike protein damage. So that was incurred from vax exposure and COVID exposure. But even though I was on the Shoemaker protocol and most of the time I was feeling, 90% better, I was still having autoimmune flares. And that really happened for me up until the point I did the spike protein protocol. And then I didn't have those flares anymore. So that was definitely a big piece of my co-infection journey. We do have a spike protein protocol class in the group if anyone is interested in that. But the FLCCC Alliance has amazing resources for spike protein protocols. So if you think that might be part of your story, and in the class I shared, like anyone who's like, I had COVID and I've never felt the same since, it's like, maybe look into a spike protein protocol.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good litmus test on whether or not that's something that you should look into. And to circle back to what you said about the travel, man, I've traveled a lot this year again, and it's like, wow, I'm still not healed. And I've been doing the Shoemaker protocol basically at this point for 2 years now. And so, like, Barbara, are you enjoying being sick? Is that what's going on here? So I have to ask myself that, but I am, aside from those once in a lifetime things that may or may not come up, I am not planning on traveling for the rest of this year, and it's currently July. So I'm at least giving myself that. Ideally, I would probably stay put for longer. I feel pretty good in my own home, as long as I don't go and spend a ton of time anywhere else. I think I'm healing okay, and I do see my numbers going up. My MSH has gone up. There are definitely signs of healing occurring, but man, the travel, it just if I don't really have to go somewhere, I am limiting that severely just to pull that lever, eliminate that variable and see if that's going to help me out. So I'm with you on that stuff.
You guys heard it here first. You can keep her accountable.
Yeah. Don't invite me anywhere really cool, please. I won't be able to resist. I can tell you that right now. But yeah, so go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say the other piece that was not necessarily a co-infection for me, but it was a huge lever for me was limbic retraining. I tried it early on in my protocol. It didn't seem effective for me at that point, but about 6 months into taking binders, I had one sleepless night after hearing bad news and I had an autoimmune flare. So I really think that you're going to get to a point in your protocol where you need to do mindset work. You need to work on your limbic system to get yourself out of fight or flight. So not necessarily a co-infection, just a lever that I found really helpful.
That's such a good point, though, because I've mentioned it before on the podcast. I've spent probably more on therapy than even the Shoemaker protocol itself at this point in the last 2 years. And I think that has been a very big key piece for me. I was constantly in fight or flight mode. I have terrible anxiety that's gotten worse. Obviously, I also discovered I actually have ADHD during this time period about a year ago, a little less than a year. So there's a lot of that stuff going on that I've had to emotionally and mentally process. And I'm trying new therapy modalities now. And if I find success in that, of course, I will keep you guys updated. But yeah, that's another big lever to pull. If you are not doing well mentally and emotionally, your healing is absolutely going to get stalled and affected by that. But let's talk now about some of the bigger ones. And we've touched on some of these on previous episodes. So we'll link to any related episodes that you guys should go check out to do a deeper dive on any of these. And the firstborn, sorry, I read my notes as I was talking. The first the first one I want to talk about, we recently covered with the amazing Dr. Peg. So please, I hope you've already seen that episode by now. But if you haven't, definitely go back and listen. Even if you don't think it applies to you, I really think it's a good episode to listen to or watch. But tick-borne illnesses, they seem to be pretty prevalent among SIRS people, even if they don't remember being bit by a tick. Like that is not necessarily the thing that, oh, I'm eliminating that as a possibility because I've never seen a tick in my life. They're sneaky little turds, man. And so if your illness profile matches what a tick-borne illness could look like, and again, go check out that episode with Dr. Peg to get that picture. It's worth looking into, man. Again, if you've gone through part of the Shoemaker protocol and you have still stalled, you know your environment's safe, and you've eliminated the possibility of like mold or endos and all that stuff, and you're still stalled, I'd say tick-borne illness might be one of the top things to look into.
Yeah, and it seems like more and more people, as they go through the protocol, are getting to a point where they hit a plateau and then they discover the tick-borne illness piece. So it definitely, if you are out of exposure, you know you're not in mold, your environment tests are coming back clean, and you're still not like crossing that finish line. Tick-borne to me is one of the first ones I would look into.
Yeah, and this isn't scientific data, but anecdotally, I know Dr. Peg has seen maybe like 50% of her patients could be struggling with tick-borne in addition to SIRS, or like, the cycle of the two of them working together. Granted, now she is a tick-borne literate practitioner, and so if people think they might have encountered a tick, they're probably more likely to go to her. So her experience might not be a true sample size of what's going on out there, but that's something really to think about. And that's one reason why I don't think any of us should, what's the word, like discount that if you are still struggling and if your healing journey is not as smooth as you would like it to be.
Another thing we've seen a lot in the group is like oral issues or bad root canals. One way you can help identify this, if it's not clear to you that that might be the reason, would be a cone beam 3D scan, which shows a lot more of the teeth and, jaw cavities, anything that might be going on. And that is possibly a source of Marcons and possibly a source of endos. So if you are someone who, you lit up for endos, or you're having a really hard time eliminating Marcons in your nose, it is possible that it's due to oral issues.
Yeah, this could be a lever for me. I hope it's not. I feel like this all happened before I even knew about SIRS, but I went through a very long process of multiple oral surgeries, all for number 11, which is an implant. It's a fake tooth now, but I had my baby tooth and adult tooth that never came down extracted. And then I had a lot of trouble actually getting an implant to take after that. So who knows? I really hope everything was fine. I have gotten the cone beam 3D scan multiple times throughout that process. And so if you're looking for someone to do that, by the way, you may need to see an implant level oral surgeon, because those are the offices that are probably going to have one of those machines just in their office ready to go. But yeah, and of course, ideally, you would also be working with a dentist that's going to be more on like the biologic side, right? And as opposed to just your conventional dental surgeon or oral surgeon. So that is something to take a look at. You can actually, uh, if you have any issue, if an infection shows up on the scan, when they're in there digging around and hopefully cleaning everything out, what they can do, what you need to be able to ask them to do is actually take a swab sample of the area that they cleaned out to make absolutely sure there's nothing left of the infection, because clearly you don't want to go through that all over again. It's not fun. Any kind of surgery is not fun, but like dental has a special place in most people's hearts of gross and awful. So, yeah.
The next one you're probably more familiar with than I am, but gut healing. A lot of people with SIRS, because your immune system is so compromised, and I mean, that's true of all of these co-infections, really, because your immune system is so compromised, you are more likely to get colonized, infected with different things. For gut stuff, it's like SIBO, SIFO, IBS, Candida, all of the letters, just the entire alphabet could be in your gut.
H. pylori, and that one's just fun to say. Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, this is definitely the path that I may still have to take. I've certainly done a lot of work on gut healing before I knew about SIRS, and it just wasn't working. I think you're a really great candidate to consider SIRS if you aren't considering it already. If you are having GI issues, that no matter how you change your lifestyle and how you eat better and cleaner and carnivore harder and all the things, if your GI still is not operating as it should, that is something to look at and maybe find ways to do extra supports. We refer to her a lot. She's the reason that we were diagnosed in the first place, but Judy Cho is a great resource if you want to work with someone who really understands how the gut works and how to support it best. And also, especially to go the more natural route, she definitely relies mostly on supplements and lifestyle changes to support the gut, which I think can be really helpful if you want to avoid the hardcore antibiotics and even some of like the herbs and other things that can cause some pretty bad reactions for some people. So yeah, I definitely recommend going that route. And of course, we all talk a lot about diet here as well. Maybe carnivore isn't quite right for you. Maybe you can try keto or GAPS. The GAPS diet is specifically designed to help rebuild the gut. I think there's a lot of really good research that's gone into that. So that's a good way of eating to look into. And even paleo. Paleo is probably one of the more like easier to manage and still have like a normal social life. But those are all diets that you might want to consider, especially as opposed to the standard American diet, which is obviously trash.
One interesting takeaway we had from SIRS X was Christian and Dr. Pegg's talk about MSH. And one thing that they found was that people who had histamine or mast cell activation syndrome supports early on in the protocol had better MSH outcomes pre-VIP. So the takeaway there was, regardless of whether or not people were showing histamine issues, the ones who were treated for histamine issues had better MSH outcomes. So it seems like the majority of SIRS patients should be doing some sort of histamine support, and that could be things like H1, H2 blockers. It could be mast cell stabilizers like cromolyn sodium. Definitely talk to your provider about what might work best for you.
Another thing that a lot of people have to deal with when they're healing is hormone support. Obviously, with MSH likely tanked, a lot of other things and hormones and bodily processes don't work right. One of those are your hormones. I certainly experienced that. My DHEA and testosterone were almost non-existent when I was first diagnosed. So what I've done, and again, you definitely want to talk to your doctor before you try this, but I have been taking DHEA daily to support that, because DHEA is a precursor that allows my body to make its own testosterone. So I am playing still to this day, 2 years in, I am playing with the amount that I am taking to find that sweet spot. My personal experience is that I actually started to get irregular periods when I took too much. So that was like jarring. I've never had irregular periods in my life. So to get spotting and then all of a sudden a really late period out of nowhere was weird. So just again, work with your doctor, and I am certainly working closely with mine to find the right amount for me. But that is something you may want to consider as well to help your whole body work better as you are healing.
And speaking of hormones, thyroid hormones are something else that can get kind of out of whack. So some providers will recommend medications like RX prescription medications to assist with the thyroid function. But for me personally, my provider wanted to put me on thyroid medication, and thyroid medication is difficult for me to get on board with. Just personally, I don't like the thought of taking a medication for the rest of my life. And thyroid meds are known to be difficult to get off of. And so I was like, okay, give me 3 months. Let me see if I can get my thyroid numbers up. And I was able to do that by adding iodine, specifically sea kelp iodine. And I also added carbs into my diet because carnivores typically do have lower T3. And I tripled the number. It was 1.8 and I got it up to like 3.3. So there's options there. Definitely, work again closely with your provider to see what might be a good fit for you.
Yeah. And I really think, at the end of the day, with all of this stuff, I want to validate the feeling that some of you may have when you're going through the already complicated shoemaker protocol, the already lengthy treatment time that you are most likely looking at, to hit a stall and to realize that there's yet another rabbit hole that you might need to go down. Oh, now I gotta freaking get my face scanned to see if there's an infection in my jaw. Like all this stuff can feel like more than a punch to the gut when you've already done so much and you've already been through so much. But I guess I want to reassure you guys, if I can, that all of these pieces work together towards you healing. So if you're attacking SIRS first with the Shoemaker protocol, you're literally removing toxins from your body and you are healing, even if it doesn't feel like you're getting that far because you have these other things in place. You are taking out a lot of the problem at the start. And if you then see, okay, I'm stalling, something else must be up, you kind of needed to do it in that order to even get to the point where you realize, hey, there's another rabbit hole to go down now. So I guess I just want to both validate that this sucks and is not fair, but also reassure you that you are in the process of leveling up yourself and your healing so that you can go tackle the next boss that you have to fight. Because the healing that you do at first to get to that point was apparently necessary for you to get to that point so that you can heal that next step. And hopefully you're done after that, but maybe next steps are needed down the line. So it's just something that I hope you guys have some reassurance that you're not alone. This does happen to people. We are, as SIRS patients, more susceptible than the rest of the population for a lot of these other infections. So I think a lot of us are going to have to deal with something here and there.
Yeah, absolutely. With SIRS, it's really interesting because it is like peeling away layers of an onion to get to root cause healing. And the reason it's like that, and the reason why, after 3, 6, 8, 20 months on the Shoemaker protocol, you're now realizing you have other underlying issues to deal with, is because as your body is healing through the Shoemaker protocol, your immune system is coming back online. And so now it's able to respond to those co-infections that previously it didn't have the bandwidth to respond to. So if suddenly you're feeling like, oh man, the Marcon's in my mouth, or oh man, I have all of these tick-borne type symptoms, it's because your immune system is coming back online. It is because you are healing that you're now experiencing these co-infections that were there all along.
Absolutely. And I've lived experience with that even on the mold side. I never knew what the heck you guys were talking about when we walked into a building and you and Christian are like, "Oh gosh, this building's bad." I'm like, "What? I would live here." Um, and I, but now that was over a year ago that I had that experience. But lately, in the last couple months, I'm going into buildings and I'm noticing that things are off. And to your point, I think I've healed enough to the level that my body can actually sense when it's getting a barrage of toxins again. And that's exciting to me. I mean, yeah, in general, I wish I didn't have SIRS, sure. So none of this would be as big of an issue. But I'm really excited to at least get that little heads up when I walk into some place and know, okay, this isn't safe. I better leave as soon as I can. So yeah, there's silver linings to all of this, I think and I hope, but just wanted to send some love and healing your way if you're listening and you feel like this episode really resonates with you.
And if you are looking for more rabbit holes, resources, and support on your SIRS journey, you can join us over at theCIRSgroup.com.
We'll see you there.